interested in an actual play?
Yeah.
Do you actually play?
Wow. We're hoping to make that. Well, okay. So I'm part of Very Random Encounters, which is a podcast where we play pen and paper RPGs and randomize as much as possible.
And your name is?
My name's Logan. And Logan Jenkins. And we've been doing that show for 6 years and 300 episodes.
I like it's been longer than 3 years.
3 was part of it. 300 episodes we just crossed over. So we've been doing it for a while, 6 years. And it's one of the most fulfilling things that I do in my life, artistically, and, keeps me hanging out with my friends. Anyway, that's what we're talking about on this panel. And I would like the rest of our panelists to introduce themselves.
Before we get started,
oh yeah,
we will do our official business. So the DragonCon charity partner for 2023 is Cure. You should see that up here. Cure is dedicated to conquering childhood cancer through funding targeted research while supporting patients and their families. You can use the QR code down there to donate, and DragonCon is going to match up to $125,000 in donations. The other sponsor is our track sponsor, which is Zakat or Zakat. Don't know, zakat.org. For over 22 years, they've been empowering lives through disaster relief, food distribution, orphan care, and more. The top-notch ratings from Charity Navigator and the BBB, Better Business Bureau. Wise Giving Alliance means that your contributions are going to make a difference. So those are our sponsors. We thank them so much for sponsoring us and letting us be here to talk about our actual play stuff. Who am I? I'm Greg Leatherman. I've been a part of Very Random Encounters for the same amount of time because we started the show together. And I've been doing gaming related stuff for a very, very long time. But because of the show, it really not only empowered me to be more creative, just in sort of my daily output of life and thinking about it, to help me write a role-playing game, which I did and published, called Glitter Hearts, and sort of pushed me into that space. So actual plays can do more for a part of your life if that is what you enjoy than just I record and put out me being somewhat funny every week.
I'm Lee Terrell. I'm one of the other hosts of Very Random Encounters. I did not do any sort of role playing or any actual play, podcasting, any of it before I started with them. So this has been really just a way for me to get into it at all. And I really enjoy it. It's one of my main creative outlets. I have a lot of fun doing it. It's not something that it's not for everybody, but if you can do it, it is amazing.
Nice. Hello, everybody. Oh, yes, that is hot.
Yeah.
We love it. I project. So, anyhow, my name's Omega Jones. Well, right now it's Spider-Man Noir without the mask. But my name's Omega Jones, also known as the Critical Bard everywhere on socials except for Tumblr, because we won't go back to that hellscape. My pronouns are he and they. I am a professional actor and vocalist out of the Midwest who became a content creator, specifically Twitch streamer, Twitch partner, and an actual play, a tabletop player, designer, GM during the pandemic. It has become my actual livelihood, which is wild to think about. It really is. And so it is true that actual plays can change your life, especially if you make it your career. Luckily, and I did get permission. We found out we did get permission to talk about it, support the strike. You can actually catch me on 2 of the Dungeons and Dragons official shows on their TV channel that's coming up soon. So it makes it's work. I've been on a bunch, but this world of actual play and tabletop has been such a blessing in disguise. I didn't think I needed it until I needed it. So I'm happy to give back any of my learned experiences from actual play work, podcast, and live on Twitch or YouTube or wherever you do your streaming. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Woo.
You're welcome.
Do I have a live mic? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'm Trevor Valley. I'm a professional game master with -2 charisma. And because, look at me. I've done mechanics writing, play testing, and such like for multiple companies over the last, 30 years or so. I also run and play in multiple charity streams. I don't have my own Twitch channel. I'm the guy that everybody goes, hey, can you come on? Like, sure. So I've been all across the actual play gamut, from like large 5e games to tiny little one-shots of paranoia from way back in the day. Yeah, actual plays are fun, exciting, and also completely terrifying in certain cases.
Mhm.
And I'm the chair. Welcome. I'm happy to be here and hold somebody else.
Yay! We're happy you're here too, Cherry.
Cherry.
Congratulations, Cherry. You've made it big.
It looks like you need a guest. You
Yeah,
want some help?
yeah. Unfortunately, we are missing a guest.
Hey, okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I want to start with the first question here. What made you want to play for an audience? Or do you even want to play for an audience? Or
I mean,
this
that
just
is.
incidental?
I stumbled into. I was sort of. The reality is, I was sort of forced into playing for an audience. I had a friend that really wanted to learn Dungeons and Dragons, and I wanted to run my Pokemon version of Dungeons and Dragons. And I said, "Hey, this is interesting. I'll run that for you." And he said, "Sure, but I want to make it a podcast and stream it." And I went, I mean, I guess. I have no idea what that means. I had no concept of what that, because it was 2015.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And so when we did it in the first ones, I was a trained actor, and I just left acting because that business is hard. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, nah, I don't like this.
Yep.
And it reignited that creativity. And also, you have to play games a little bit differently when you're doing them for an audience. And so it really helped stretch my concept of what a game can be and how it should be for at-home play versus for an audience play. And I found just sort of the feedback of having people watch it and get really inspired by what we were doing was really like, oh, people like this content, and I also think I have things to say that people would benefit from. And so that sort of transitioned into doing podcasting and actual plays a lot more.
Mhm. And I want to stress that wanting to play for an audience isn't a bad thing. I say that before I say most people play for an audience because they want to be seen or heard
100%.
in any way, shape, or
100%.
form.
Yeah.
They want to perform. And yeah, as Greg said, I was doing a tour. I was doing a children's tour back in the Midwest, and the last day of my tour is when COVID hit St. Louis. So I also didn't have a job. I didn't lose a job. I just got done. So I just had nothing. So this was my way to perform again in this new age of having to be home isolated. And while I do, truthfully, I do a lot more live play work on video. I have done a bunch of audio-based, podcast-based actual play work, and it's the same, just a different way of perceiving it, right? But yeah, I want to play for an audience because that's my livelihood and that's where I excel. And Greg is also 1,000% correct. You play differently in a home game than you do with an audience, because at the end of the day, you're making decisions that you hope the audience is receptive to, which means sometimes you make decisions in a way to make sure that it looks good for a viewing from a viewing standpoint versus if it's just something you really want to do. Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices in order for the show to be what it is.
What my character would do is a lot more difficult when you're like, what would my character do? And also, what would the audience not hate me for?
Exactly.
I don't want to do this thing that's going to alienate a million people. So I sort of need to keep in mind I'm being true to my character, but I also have to be aware that I need to be aware that people are going to receive what I'm doing in a much broader aspect. And that's the thing you need to keep in mind, because it's easy to fall into holes because once you put it out there, it is out of your control at how people take it. So you really need to be mindful about what am I saying and how am I saying it and how are people going to get that message.
You don't have to think about pacing when you're playing with your friends, but you have to think about it when you're playing for an audience.
Haley, how did you get into actual play?
Good question, Greg. Well, Greg and Logan and our other host, Wheels, they wanted to start an actual play, and I'm friends with Logan in real life. So they asked if I wanted to join because I've played a lot of like board games, and I was interested in role playing games. And Logan was just like, "You can do it; it'll be fine." So.
And I was right.
We were right, but I will say because our show we randomize everything. So the concept is on the first episode you just find out what your character is, and then it's like the deepest, heaviest improv, and we literally took Lee up to the cliff and said, "Well, have fun. You've never done this before. We're going to make you do the hardest thing and version of it. We'll see if it works." And it,
on fire.
yeah.
Well, it turns out I respond well to pressure, and also I'm much better at responding to things than coming up with them on my own. So
Much of a reactor than an actor.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it really, I thrived in that scenario. So it's been really fun. But that is how I got started.
I came at it in a completely different route because when I was young, I was doing what would effectively be an actual play in a local game shop. People would come and watch our campaign.
Yeah.
And then I was one of the main play testers for the original Mind's Eye Theater Vampire the Masquerade LARP.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
with the LA Camarilla and the Arizona Camarilla out of Tucson, we would have sections that were we had primary, like, rule 0 was don't scare the straights. But
That is generally a rule 0.
yeah, but I mean, you've got a lot of people walking around with, like, fake fangs and just going,
Yeah.
I dominate you. My presence is 5. And people are like, what the hell? But we also had, in order to raise money for either local charities or for the Camarilla offshoots themselves, we would sell tickets and tell people where we would be playing, and they would be kind of off to the side. But that would also, people were like, hey, what are all those people standing around watching?
Yeah.
So it was automatically just working. When the whole Twitch thing started, it was just a natural progression. It's like, I don't have to look at the audience now. It's actually a little more freeing.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm looking at the audience. It's only a little terrifying.
I like looking at a little camera and a monitor.
Yeah.
That's
See, I'm the masochist who not only looks at the audience. I mean, looked at the camera, but also look at the chat as the game is playing, and then you see that one, I'm like, you mother. Okay.
Yeah. I am, again, having been in acting, I want to be seen. That's the thing that I grew early on.
Is that so?
I have to not pay attention to chat when I'm in things. I'm like, I cannot, because I will just be like, and typing it, I'm like, no, you're running the game. Oh, yeah, right. Right, I'm running this thing.
See, I'm happy I can't look at chat because my computer's a garbage fire.
Oh, well, valid.
Yeah, no, I'm like a 2011 HP Elite.
Oh, there you go.
The video card is on the motherboard.
Oh,
it's like,
boy.
You're trying to run OBS and
boy.
Video Ninja? Have fun.
I'm impressed that computer is still running, honestly. So we mentioned it's different to play for an audience. What kind of game works for you when you're wanting to, like, look at a game that you think would work well for an audience?
I mean, anything. I mean, kind of going into the podcast aspect of it. I think that's like a big part of this panel in general. Anything that has a good narrative that a story can be followed from it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some games that are, kind of like you do this, you do this, you do this, you do that, and it's kind of whatever. It's fun. It's if you have the people who can make that fun, right? Any if you have a good group like Very Random Encounters, random plug, they can make anything fun because they are fun themselves. But some people just don't have that natural capacity to, like, be funny or be intriguing.
Yeah.
And that sounds shady, but it's the truth. Just some people just don't. So having a game that has something built in narratively that you feel like you can actually, like, make something out of it, make a sequence, make a scene, make a story out of it.
Yep.
I think those are what are most applicable, I guess, in this type of actual play world.
Heavy combat's bad.
Yeah.
Heavy combat that revolves a lot of rolling and a lot of things. If you are not able to edit a lot of that out, If you've ever listened to an actual play podcast of D&D where they're keeping all of the combat rolling in and you're like, we're hour 5 and I want to die and we've been fighting the same band of kobolds. This is awful. Games that have a way to make combat narrative work great. And it's not to say that D&D doesn't work. It works wonderfully, but you really need to adapt that combat system to be narrative and fun, which really means you kind of need to throw a lot of their combat rules out and just keep it real simple.
That's actually what I look for specifically, are games I can break. Things that I can, because as a mechanics designer, I look at things like I ran 2 seasons on Open Circuit Studios using the Cortex Plus system.
Oh, Cortex is good.
In 2010, leveraged the role-playing game.
Yeah.
So we did Leverage LA, but I stripped it to its complete bareness to the point that Cam Banks went, really?
Yeah. Cam's a good guy.
Cam Banks is the one that devised the Cortex system. And that's what I look for, is games that you can streamline to make things, 1, make the narrative pop, and 2, not be going, okay, so if I'm rolling 3d6 plus my rage modifier, plus, and then, it just bogs down.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to ignore rules that just are not going to work, that are going to bog everything down, like they're saying, but also be willing to bring in things that you like from other games.
Yeah.
Yes.
We all the time will bring in stuff that we play from other games, like Close Quarters,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff to just make it interesting.
There
You can
was
pop
a
it
game-
into any game.
A game called Uncharted Worlds was forever changed our podcast because it has a close quarters downtime roll where you roll 2d6 and then you sort of, based on the roll, you have an interaction with another person and it's very personal. And the minute we hit it in that season, we're like, this is going into literally everything that we do, because it is, from a narrative standpoint, it's hard a lot of times to, like, let's shine the spotlight on 2 characters for a while and have them have a really personal conversation. That's hard for people to do in real life. It's even harder when you're like, here's 2 fictional characters and we're trying to do a show and now we're going to have this weird moment unprompted. That was like, here's a way to gamify it, code it in to give us prompts and fit these things early. Like we just started a Star Trek season, and the very first episode, like, it's a downtime episode and we're doing close quarters. That's how we're starting.
I get to know all the characters.
Yep.
We mentioned like how you certain people don't have certain skill sets, but what actually makes you feel empowered from an AP partner?
Like from from other players?
Right.
Yeah.
Other players.
yeah.
I mean, everyone comes to the table with something different. None of us are a monolith. We might all be nerds doing nerdy shit, but like we are all different, so we're going to bring something different to the table. I enjoy seeing how another person's brain works. That might be creepy as heck. I might be Hannibal Lecter. I don't know.
I like it too.
But I enjoy seeing the process in anything that I do. But when it comes to actual play, I enjoy seeing like how a character is going to interact, how this player is going to make this character interact. And that type of connection is what like drives me as well. Cause like I'm a performer and I'm always growing. Like as if you're an artist, like a visual artist or a digital artist or whatever, you never stop learning how to do your art. You fine tune it. If you're a makeup artist, if you're a singer, if you're anything, you never stop learning. And the same applies to being a performer and any of the of that definition. I'm going to always learn, and sometimes I find myself learning more, not from the folks who call themselves pros, but just this individual who loves this character so much and loves this game so much, and they put their all into it, and they go at it in a way that I wouldn't have expected. It just makes me go, huh, let me just go ahead and steal that from you.
Yeah.
So I when we were in that cherry game together, you were playing the creepy College of Whispers, like dark goth bard, and Kelly, opera geek, was there, and I was like crazy little grung monk. Watching you just kind of sit back and watch everybody and pick it up, and then just step in with like, I am going to be the Lord Mordred of voice. It It was perfect.
Mhm.
I loved watching that, and knowing that that's how you move into something. That is just, man, that's fucking charitable.
Also,
Wait, can we
this
swear
right
on
here,
this? I'm
what's
sorry.
happening, this is the best way to support your players. Tell them what they did great.
Yeah.
And
Stars and wishes,
just,
man.
it's really a great,
Mm.
I think one of our strengths is that we're willing to tell each other, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what to do here. I need help. But we're also willing to be like, man, you rock at that. That was
Yeah.
amazing. That choice you made there was so good. And I think those are really important things to do with the people that you're playing with, because we're just all in our heads about it all the time.
Mhm.
You don't know what other people are thinking. And even if you have a successful show, like, don't read the comments. So you don't necessarily know what people really think, but your co-hosts, if you listen to them and trust them and believe them, like, they will help you out.
I also think there is this tendency to be like, the only option is a yes and that's not true.
Mhm.
You need to learn the solid skill of a no but
Ooh, yes.
to be like, okay, no, that is not going to work. But how about we try this? And you need to be able to, with your play group, be very comfortable in being like, we're going to stop and we're going to talk about how we're going to go forward. But in a lot of ways, what helps empower me is when we get into a groove
Mhm.
and it is just working and we're just going to go and we're not going to think a whole lot about this. And we have the safety amongst ourselves that at the end of it, if we all say, that was kind of bad, let's go back and redo that. But in those moments of when you're just going to just fully trust the other person, that really gets me thrilled and exciting, because I'm like, I'm giving up so much control and I'm just also here along the ride. And I think it's the closest you get to what it's going to be like for people to listen to. To be like, okay, this was super fun and I can't wait for people to hear this, because I got super excited while I was in it and listening to it.
Trevor, you mentioned Stars and Wishes. Do you want to explain that?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Every single game I'm in, every single game I run, I try and, if it's one I'm in, I try and ask for safety tools. Because lines and veils, like there's a line that you don't cross. A veil is okay. We'll just make it fade to black, for example. But safety tools such as Stars and Wishes are great, because to prevent bleed over is one of the ways that you can actually keep an actual play podcast fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get really, really into it, and if you just stop hard and go, okay, everybody, see you next week. There's stuff that is still percolating, and there is bleed over, especially if you're doing a multi-year solo, single campaign.
I just want to jump in really, really quickly for those who might not know. Character bleed is the idea of, like, if I'm playing a character and I'm so into it, it's like method acting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
almost worse.
It's way worse.
It's way worse.
It's way worse.
But it's the idea of you're so in tune with your character and you're playing it. With actual play, we become who we embody. Gaming is so interesting, especially when it comes to tabletop, because in a video game, you can shut your game off, even if you're playing like Skyrim or Baldur's Gate 3, where you have like created a character that you really are connected to. In actual play, you are that character. And then sometimes when you're done recording that session, you're still in that character.
Yeah.
You're still in their feelings and their emotions. That's bleed. It's not always bad, but that's bleed.
Yeah.
So the Stars and Wishes aspect is decompression after a game. Everybody just gets up, takes a bio break, comes back to the microphones or the video or anything like that, and we go round table. And it's like, your star, who do you think did something amazing? You can even star the whole cast. You can have multiple stars, but a wish is either something you want to see, or a light criticism, or if it's a really heavy duty thing, even an actual criticism, like, dude, this sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it could be better, because that gives you trust among the cast as well. Because if you're not ready to tell people what was good, and you're not ready to listen to what was bad, then you're not going to have fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, safety tools, especially decompression ones, are super important.
And I want to say, kind of in that same vein, I was thinking about when you're talking about stars and wishes. A harsh truth that a lot of folks need to hear and are afraid to listen to. You're not going to always find the perfect actual play team.
No, you're never going to do that. No.
You could.
Flash in the pan.
I mean, we did.
We did.
We did.
we got so damn lucky.
Yeah, I am a realist to a very specific extent. But like, no, you could. But I say that to say two things. Sometimes you're going to find yourselves connecting with folks you don't even know.
Yeah.
And those are going to be the best connections you have. In that same vein, sometimes your friends are going to be ones that let you down.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about your actual play, how in whatever form to take, think about who you're playing with. Because you're playing with people that don't share your energy, then you're not going to feel good. You're not going to be empowered to continue playing this thing. There's a reason so many actual plays flop, and I've been in a bunch who have, because we thought we wanted something and we really didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't really have that communication, always open and going. We didn't really think about the longevity of it. We just said, "Oh, we want to do this, and we want to do it in front of people because we don't want to be popular." That's not going to cut it. You got to do that with the right people.
Yeah.
I mean-
Pre-roll and post-roll. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To go back about character bleed, I'll bring up an actual example from our show. I played a horrible person, a awful villain in our horror season called Silgar, and I did not like. I knew how to decompress from being an actor, and I just was not doing any of that work when we were done. And because he was awful,
He was bad.
he was awful, and playing him felt awful. Them interacting with him, they're like, we hate this person so very much, which is what I was going for. But about 3 episodes into that, I had to say to everybody, like, please tell me you don't hate me and that I'm not ruining your lives, because I wasn't doing the proper work to separate that out. So I'd be this awful person hurting my friends for an hour recording, and then we'd be like, yeah, that was so much fun. And then I just wasn't getting out of that feeling. And that really started to derail how I was approaching that. And it was really important to go back to them and like, hi, please tell me you don't actually hate me, that it is just this person that I'm doing, because they are deliberately the worst thing I've ever created. And I hate them. And I hate that it's coming out of me so easily. Like,
Aw.
I could it's like, these are all the things I hate in people. So I'm just going to project this out into the world. So it's important when you're in these things, because you can get very deep into it, that you take proper time. And it's important to keep it fun, to pull yourself out, reconnect with your cast as just who they are, and not the people that they just were. Because part of what makes stories great is conflict.
Yeah.
And conflict is not necessarily going to be resolved in that episode, but you need to make sure it's been resolved with your friends, and that you're still looking forward to coming back next episode to record and pick up. Here we are in conflict again.
Well, and that was the same season that Logan and I were. It was like us against them kind of season, and we had like misunderstood a rule, so we had to stop the game at some point and be like, we don't know what to do now. This feels bad, and we're just lost, and we don't know. And finally, like, it kind of clicked with Wheels, that's who was running the season, that was like, oh, you're just not understanding.
Yeah.
This is an important rule.
You just missed it. It's fine. And we had to like get back together and get on the same page. And it feels scary to do that, even with your really close friends. But it's just a really important part of it, because at the end of the day, again, like if this was just a game with your friends at your house, like whatever, you can kind of just talk it out or let it go or do whatever you want. But when you're trying to make a show that's recorded for other people,
A business at that point.
yeah, like I didn't know how to make the audience understand what was happening, let alone myself. So you have to be able to have those conversations to make the show good.
Yeah, it comes down to communication. End of story. And I'm always going to be like, hey, first and foremost rule for me in anything that I do is that we communicate. Because that's where the first breakdown happens. Someone has miscommunicated something. Someone has not said a very specific thing. Someone hasn't been honest about something. and it just starts to break down. Just thinking about that, not to give another example to kind of make this a tangent, but I was doing a show recently that I just wrapped up called Mysteries in the Mall, and it was a Monster of the Week campaign. And I knew that I was playing the son of the BBEG. The rest of the players didn't. And that didn't make me a bad character, but it made every choice I made very specific. And there was someone, we were doing Stars and Wishes actually, and they were like, I don't really understand your character, but I like some of the things that they're doing. And then I talked with them afterwards, like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm not coming off in a certain way. And she was like, I'll be honest, I don't know if your character is with us or not. And I said, I'll be honest with you, you won't know. But I still want that open communication for us. And I was like, I can promise you that like my character is going to protect the party. I can't promise you that he's with the party. Right. And that doesn't go into spoiler territory. We didn't want to, do all that. But I was like, it's still communication because, as you said, a story does have conflict. The conflict doesn't have to be this big bad thing. Racism doesn't have to be your thing about conflict. But it just doesn't.
No shit.
But like conflict can exist, and you can still have conflict and tell a great story while behind the scenes communicating with your people. That's what's going to make your actual play a good actual play. It's going to make it long lasting, and it's going to make it fun.
Yeah, we were doing Call of Cthulhu season, which is set in the 20s. And we were like, the 20s were really bad for a lot of minorities. But guess what? Not in our world. We're chucking that out. We don't care because that's
fantasy 20s.
It's not. That's not a fun conflict for us. Most of us over here are some sort of minority, and it is not pleasant to also play that in the game necessarily, unless everybody is very clear at the start. And we know exactly what we're going to be doing and how we're approaching this. And everybody's going to be comfortable with how we're approaching this. And then you have to think incredibly deeply, is this also going to be appropriate for an audience to watch and listen? Because we're going to be working out our issues, which might not be fun.
If the audience is included in, don't do it. Sorry.
Yeah.
End of story.
That's where safety tools go beyond the table.
Yeah.
Like content warning. This episode will include X, 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 and X.
Yep.
If they're not included in, you are not doing your due diligence as a performer, as an executive, as a business person, especially.
And we messed up straight up in my Tales from the Loop season. At the end of the season, to explain Lee's character's mom, I had a real life example of what happened in my family that I was basing it off of their conflict. And it was a very bad conflict. And we covered it. And we got a letter from a person saying, hey, I love your show, but I was not warned and this happened and it brought back things up. And I sent them an email and I just said, I am so incredibly sorry because that happened to me 25 years ago, so it's just a memory to me. I forgot that that's probably not a memory for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know how to apologize enough. I was completely stupid. I never thought beyond my own life. We'll go, like I said, we'll go back. We're going to fix the episode. If there's anything I can do to sort of help you through this, I'm really, 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 really sorry that I was just so thoughtless. And that was like a big wake up call in me to be like, things that are fine to me aren't going to be fine to others. And we need to be very careful about that because we have to protect our audience as much as we have to protect ourselves.
Yep. You're gonna run up against barriers anyway. Like that's gonna happen in your actual play, by the way. Like you just sort of have to make those kind of mistakes and move forward. Okay, so now that we got all that heavy stuff, what's your number one tip for keeping it fun for the long haul?
Remember why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you're not sitting in the office. I mean, you might be, but like you're making the conscious effort to spend some of your time, whether you're doing this for fun reasons or to make it an actual business. You're choosing to play a game in front of people with folks that you trust. That's a blessing that you have the chance to even do that, right? I think about it all the time. Like I literally woke up the other day and I was like, I get to literally roll dice 3 times today, and I'm making money doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just wild.
Yeah.
Especially, and I believe most of us are old enough to have parents who are like, that isn't a real job. And it's like, it paid for me to be here.
Yeah.
So
It's real enough.
I think it's pretty darn real.
You want to be an artist?
right.
Okay.
Okay.
But no, like, for me, remember why you're doing it. Like, actual, and specifically this is actual play. Like, not only are you rolling dice with people you care for or people you really enjoy, but you're doing the audience to inspire them.
Yes.
I don't think anyone, well, I don't know people, but I don't think anyone is that selfish to just be doing it for an audience for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, you're doing it for the audience because you want them to see and feel what you are feeling. And in that case, you're going to be uplifting them and giving them hope and giving them the story that they're going to lean in and then remember when they go talk to their friends. Like, you're giving them something that's fun and nice. Like, so remember why you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's my number one tip.
Yeah, for us, one of the big things that definitely Logan and I talked about early on was like, we want to make gay stories that we didn't have growing up. And that's what we want to put out in the world so that people can go and be like, there's a trans character in your actual play and they're an actual character and they're there the entire time and they aren't miserable. Like, we want to present the stories that would have inspired us. And so whenever we approach a new season, for me, it's like, I'm excited that I get to tell queer stories in the Star Trek universe now because they don't necessarily have always existed. And we can bring our own spin about what the world is. And also, I get to hang out with some of my best friends and just have a great time every week. And I will freely admit, some days I'm like, I do not want to do this.
I need a pipeline punch monster now.
Yep.
I don't want to record. I don't want to put my voice on something. I don't want to. And the minute we pick up that call, I'm like, do not want to be anywhere else.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, that's most days for me.
Most days really. It's
I
pretty
do
rare
not.
for me.
I don't like having plans. But then as soon as we start, I'm so happy. I'm always so happy.
It's weird. Again, I take it from stuff I've done in the past and at home. Being a professional GM, like, it is part of my income. What empowers me for it, and like what I think it would be fun, and what I think is fun, is I get to watch people tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just an unreliable narrator that sets up the book covers. I know. Well, yeah,
It's true.
Yeah.
it's true.
It's true.
It's true. It's like, really, what's the innkeeper's name?
That's the joy of our show. We
it's-
randomize
It's
everything.
Yelp. Now to jobs. But that's what I really like, is watching people's stories evolve, because it's their story. I'm just the person providing
Yep.
something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it fun for me. And if it's an engaging enough story, it makes it fun for the audience.
Yep.
And everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you said something too that really kind of like stuck out to me. I think having the idea of telling that story, but also like this is a selfish moment. Like, sometimes, like, what keeps it fun for me is knowing that I'm telling a story that I want to see, that I haven't been able to see.
Yep.
And while that doesn't have to be like, I want to tell a Black story, I want to tell a queer story, I want to tell a neurodivergent story, whatever. And if it is, that's great. More power to you. Hell yeah, we need more of that representation in general. But sometimes, like, some of those just interesting concepts bring me a lot of joy, and I like to see it from start to finish. One of my favorite characters, I was telling Joe some time ago, that one of my favorite characters is, it's funny that Baldur's Gate 3 came out and their focus is Illithid. One of my favorite characters is a half Illithid who was born because of a bunch of different reasons. And like, I got to guess, like, in this time of playing this character in the show, I got to think of every small little detail, because he wasn't human. I had to think about, how would this character interact in this world, not understanding anything. His charisma is a 7. And he's not a 7 because he's not, cool or anything. He just doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know human interaction. So for me, those stories are always fun. And that's what keeps it fun. I can't just play the random fighter with the sword who's just hacking things away. And if that's you, more power to you. that's never going to be the story I tell because that's not going to be fun for me. And it doesn't have to be like super, intricate. I'm the big, main character of the game because I hate that as well because we're all a family here. But something that's going to keep me personally interested and invested in a story is also a way to keep it fun.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, well, we have a little bit of time to take some audience questions, and I have the super cool thing to just throw this at you.
It's a microphone. We can toss it at you. So if you have questions.
All right. Okay,
Oh,
you got
watch
this? Oh,
Get
gosh.
the camera.
Okay.
I'm going to go like that.
Yay.
Oh my God, I caught it.
Yay. We did it.
So my question is, like, I know since you guys are friends, has it changed your relationship? Because I feel like sometimes when you go into business with friends, you don't always stay friends.
That
Interesting.
we lucked out in that we early on sort of divided out the work and what we were comfortable in doing and said, I trust you to do that. And I think that was put to the test when we wrote a book together
Oh, God.
because that was a very stressful process. But I think much like you have to have open communication when you're playing the game itself, you have to be open about how are we doing this as a business? What do we want? Who's taking what? Because Logan and Wheels thankfully do the heavy lifting of doing all the editing because I don't know how to do it. And quite frankly, I don't want to. I may have to learn for a job, but I don't want to. Like, this is not what I want to do. Instead, I was like, y'all don't like talking to people, throw me at people, and I will talk them to literal death about our show. I will run social media. I will make the connections. I will talk to anybody you want me to. And I am very, very comfortable at doing that. And Lee is just very much, I need to organize and I'm going to put all these things in the spreadsheet and I know where we need to be and I'm going to make the calendar of our recording. And so we freely just said, not only do I trust you in the game, I'm going to trust you to do your outside job too. And not do my ever living best to, if I have a problem, to not criticize you, but say, help me understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And it just has to be a big amount of communicating and being, you have to be with people that you feel very comfortable being sometimes very raw with and saying, let's talk about this bad thing that we all have to talk about right now. I can't record for the next 5 months. Go.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
What's our plan?
What's our plan? Or I can't do it. I just can't tonight. Can't. It's not going to happen. What do we want to do? And being good enough friends and trusting each other and being able to say, I fully understand. Let's have a solution.
That's good.
Yeah.
We do also have a Twitch question.
Ooh, what's the Twitch question?
It is, how long do you think an episode should be before it feels like it's too long?
Okay.
Okay, the question was, how long do you think an episode should be before it feels too long?
I have so many thoughts. My number one, and I will stand on this hill and scream it, no episode of any show or podcast should be over an hour. I find it, and I do a podcast where our shows are sometimes not very random encounters, but the Pokemon podcast can go for 2 hours to 2.5 hours. And I always tell people I get actively more angry in the podcast every minute we go past an hour 30. I'm like, why are we still here? And a lot of it's my fault because I don't shut up. But TV shows are timed for a very specific reason. And I think people want to ignore that because you're having so much fun. But if you really have respect for your audience and their time and what they can get done in a week with their free time, that you are literally saying, I'm going to monopolize your free time so I can talk in your ear, you should respect their time and not go over an hour.
See, I'm going to disagree because I come from the theater world.
Yep.
And I get that sometimes a story can't be told in an hour. I will say I don't think we need to be going 5 hours because that's just a lot. I really don't think we'd be going 3. But I think you're going to realize what your own audience is receptive to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna notice the numbers. You're gonna notice where's there a mosquito? You're gonna notice my blood. You're gonna notice the analytics and all that. Use that and then take that and understand how long your show should be.
And
Because again, those shows are monolith. Just use them as an example because they are one of the most highly high profile actual plays. Critical Role is in an hour. It's almost 4. But they have an audience that they know is receptive to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Know your audience and then figure it out from there. Know the show that you're telling. Know the story that you're telling. If it can be a episodic type of thing, then yeah, an hours are great. But if it's kind of more of a long form and you need that time to really let those stories marinate, then maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2. But again, you're going to notice how your audience is receiving it with the analytics that you get from wherever, site you use for your podcast. And you'll be able to go from there. And it is important to stress that this is just for podcasting. This quote is answer is just for podcasting, because with video you have another element to add.
That's a whole nother element.
It's a lot easier to take in video than audio. Well, it's a lot easier to take in long amounts of video versus audio. But still, I guess it still comes down to know your audience. You'll figure out your audience. Start at a space, see how they receive it, see how they respond. Ask the question, hey, this episode was an hour. Do you think it could have been 2? Do you think we could have stretched it out? Or do you think we need to condense this? Ask them. That goes back to communication. Don't let them dictate your show, because some people are butts. And
they are.
They don't get that. Yep. But I still think you can have the open dialogue and use all of that information to figure out what's best for your podcast.
Yeah.
I also think that, like an hour, that's pretty much the standard. Maybe 2, but it also really has to deal with the format in which it can be absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you if you pre-record, awesome, because then people can listen to it however many little snippets as they can. If you do it live, but you have a recording immediately after, they can do the same thing. Or if you're on a Patreon live, it comes out every Tuesday. Then it becomes it's the audiobook aspect. It's like people buy audiobooks and they listen to it on their break and stop. Or they put the whole damn thing in there when they're taking a long drive.
Yep.
It's the way your content will be absorbed is also very key.
I also think it depends on how you're going to edit. If you are not editing, I think you actually can get away with a longer show. But if you're editing, you just edit. Make it shorter.
Yeah.
Just make it shorter.
And I want to say, if you're not editing, you need to be cognizant of what you're keeping. Because again, when you have like 5 minutes of one roll, 5 minutes doesn't sound long to us. Been in the podcast, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite moments was after a show. We had just got done with rehearsal, and our stage manager, has a timer, and they go talk to the director. Director comes to us and goes, "Okay, great, this was amazing. We need to shave 2 minutes." That doesn't seem like a lot when you say it out loud. In a show, it is.
In a show, it's like
So think about that. If you're not going to edit, which is fine, just keep in mind what you're keeping in and how long you're doing stuff, because then that could be a problem. That's when it becomes, I'm knocking my head, please be over.
Yep.
If it's engaging, if it's a long form show, then I think that can benefit from a longer time. But I do agree that like if it's episodic, if it's something that you don't really need to be here this entire time, it's like an episode of like Zoom from the 90s. Keep it.
And going back to Matt and Fam, when they actually like release a CR episode audio, like people listen to it just the audio. How do they do that?
Yeah,
because they are demonic.
That is, but that is a part of their business model. That again, keep in mind that you are asking a lot from your audience, and keep in mind that when you're asking them to heavily invest in your show for a very long amount of time, you are also asking them to divest from other things. And when you're deciding to take up a lot of people's time, you really need to make sure that that's good. Like,
It's like if you want to make a 3-hour show, just simply make an incredible show, I guess.
right.
Facts.
But like,
Yeah.
think about it in terms
Just
of,
be real good.
is this a movie or am I episodic like a TV show? Those are good guidelines because even people were like, do I want to see a 3-hour Oppenheimer film? That seems like a lot, but it was worth it. But those are questions that people have, and those are questions that you need to honestly think about. Like, okay, what do we want? Or can this 3-hour thing actually be 3 episodes, an hour each?
That's also important.
And then we don't have to record for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's oh boy.
Some
So
more
we got
questions. Yeah.
somebody else with a question? This person
I
has
don't
the
know.
cube. Deliver the cube.
It's got a handle too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
My question was how you managed to transition from maybe the show idea and its early beginnings to something that became more of a capitalism aspect or a way to make money.
Mindset?
Yeah, money.
Not even mindset. I mean, that's important too. But that transition, what did it look like in terms of mindset? We should do this, and then also, how did you do that? Like, how?
I mean, the biggest thing was once we felt comfortable that our show was going to work. Like our D&D season, which was our first season, we're like, we don't know if this idea is good or will work or that we want to do it for a long term.
I didn't know if I was gonna like them.
Yeah, we just didn't know. And then once we did the thing, like, yes, we really like doing this, then we talked about, okay, now let's open up a Patreon and see if anybody's willing to help pay for our show
Yep.
and let the audience decide. And we were blessed that they did. We have a Patreon that covers the cost of producing the show. We don't really
Things like
and getting us here.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of at that point decide, do I want to accept all of the business obligations of running a business entails? Do I want to figure out taxes? Do I want to figure out invoicing? Do I want to figure out receipts? Do I love this enough that I'm willing to do all the ugly business work? And if the answer is yes, then see if your audience is willing to help.
Which is why I said mindset. It really comes down to what are you willing to do? If you think like the transition period, yeah, there's a lot of actionable things, Patreon, Discord, getting it with an actual, a website to actually host your podcast, et cetera, et cetera. Those are important things to do, but you don't do that until you're ready.
Yeah.
So it really comes to when do you think you're ready? You won't be ready until you talk with your folks and say, we're ready.
Yeah.
And then you start getting the Patreon, you start getting the Discord, you start getting the actual audience, you start looking for sponsors, you start looking for how can we put this out in a way that the world is going to be able to witness it and see it. Do you want to do it on multiple platforms at once? All those things you start thinking about once you finally say, I'm ready.
Yeah. Am I going to do this as a business and accept the negative aspects of business and the positive aspects of business? But you have to decide. This is what I want to
If
do.
you get popular enough, you do have to do taxes.
Yep.
At Neg 2 Charisma, we say deficio et mori et repeto. We are defeated, we die, we repeat. Because don't ever be afraid to fail.
Yep.
That's the main thing. You're going to make something that people don't like. And you're going to make something that is amazing, and then you have to end it, and then people get mad at you, and then they don't like you anymore. But then once you hit that stride, yeah, you can transition into that model if you keep it fun for you and for the audience.
Yep.
That's the name of the panel.
The panel.
We got time for one more question.
We have time for one more
One.
question
Yeah.
if somebody wants to ask.
Deliver the cube.
Hi, y'all. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple of days, so I apologize if I get all up in my emotions about it because I'm real in the. Is it too early to curse in here? I just won't. I'm really in my head about this. My friends and I have had an actual play for a couple of years now, and it was always we're a bunch of burnt out theater kids who left the professional industry for one reason or another. And this is our creative outlet, like was said before. So it wouldn't be the same to just play a home game.
Yeah.
Because I know I need that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I guess what it boils down to is, in various ways, we have all begun sacrificing our own fun for the perceived fun of our audience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we stop doing that.
Hey,
No.
Yeah, you just stop.
Don't
No,
don't
nailed
bitch.
it.
nothing.
Yeah.
No. This is so
Yeah.
real.
This is
Nothing
No,
is
it-
worth sacrificing your own joy.
correct.
Yeah.
This world already does that for you. The audience does not have a monopoly on your feelings and your fucks.
Yeah.
Period. So with that being said, if you are noticing that this is no longer becoming fun for you and you're only doing it to better your audience and make them feel good, then you need to reevaluate why you're doing it. You need to have a come to Jesus moment, or whoever you worship or don't worship. I don't care. Come with your people. I mean, a theater person to theater person. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
Yep.
Put on Hamilton and just get some. Go to the IHOP that you do at 3:00 in the morning,
Yeah.
and have a moment
Yeah.
and say, what do we do to fix this for
For
ourselves?
ourselves.
And that could mean changing up your concept,
Yeah.
and your audience will have to deal with it
Yep.
because they don't get to benefit from your suffering.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to honestly sit down and think, why did I start this? And remember that your audience found you because of how you started. And if you lose some because you've gone back to how you started, okay, bye.
You don't need them. You don't need all of them.
You don't.
You don't
We
need
don't
the
have that
towns.
many to lose.
Yeah.
You'll
And
get
that-
more when
that
you
is-
when you're doing it for you and you're truly having fun. And this emotion that's happening right now, when that's not there, because you're happier, your audience will know.
Yeah. And you will find people to replace them. Or you might not. But you will be happy.
Yeah.
And that, above anything else, is the most important part. Because as former actors, we all know that when you are not happy and you're trying to do your role and the audience is like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
Why is this
Yeah.
weird? This feels weird. I don't like it.
And it sounds counterintuitive, but as a creator, you don't owe your audience shit.
Yep.
And if you're an audience member, creators don't owe you shit. It's like,
Yep.
if you're not doing it for yourself, then you need to stop.
And
Really
honestly,
do.
if your
Walk
ship
away.
goes down, it'll go down with you all being true to yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can still say, again, I'm all about the open dialogue when it's necessary. And I think it's clear that you all care about your audience to be willing to suffer for their benefit.
Mhm.
So have a dialogue and say, hey, folks, we're going to be honest with you. We're not happy right now. We're not happy with the product that we're giving out. Some things might change. If you're still with us in the long haul, it means they're for you and they support you. If this means the end of our journey, then thank you for being here. I hope you find something elsewhere. But at the end of the day, you have to make the decision that this is for you all, and they come second.
Yep.
I'm a Twitch streamer. I will never let an audience member in my chat dictate how I play or what I do on
You
my
have your
stream.
own gift. Block,
Yeah,
block,
I
block,
do.
block.
I
Yeah.
do. I'm literally, if you look up GIF right now on Twitter, I'm the second one that pops up. It's real. But for real, like,
Yeah.
it all comes down to, you need to remind yourself that you're doing this for yourself and with your friends and trying to tell a story, even if it's for an audience. You're still trying to tell a story and have fun with that.
Yeah.
And if you're no longer having fun, then you need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's a beautiful note for us to wrap up on. That's literally how to keep it fun. Again, our beautiful panelists, can you please tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, I am Greg Leatherman. You can find the games that I make on leatherman.games. Please listen to our show, Very Random Encounters. Go to vre.show, which links to literally everything that we've done. And you can find our book where it's all the Ultimate Random Encounters book. It's on Amazon.
And you have a
Easy.
show later today.
And we have a show. We have a live show later
Yep.
today for our podcast, Very Random Encounters, in 8, which I think is across the hall at 4 p.m. We would love for people to come see the weird things we do live.
I'm Lee Terrell. You can find me on VRE, and that's basically the only place.
That's it.
That is fair. Yeah. Again, I'm Omega Jones, also known as Critical Bard. You can find me on most places at Critical Bard. I do way too much online. I'll be doing a lot of traveling soon because I'm a sadist, I guess. But yeah, that's where you can find me doing all the things. I'm done for DragonCon. I'm just going to chill and cosplay.
There you go. I'm Trevor Valley. Mainly, you can find me Monday nights on -2 Charisma, playing in our The Sinner's Dream. It's a 5e noir-inspired game. Takes place in the 1940s in a weird city. But if you want all my socials and everything, just go to tattoosandbones.com or sabercatindustries.com. That's my new thing I'm working on to do game writing. And for the next thing I'm doing is the Science of D&D Monsters upstairs in Hilton 209 211 with the science track. That's it. 2:30. Lolly, are we at 2:30? We're at 2:30. 2:30? 2:30 in the afternoon. Hilton 209.
Thanks. I've been Logan Jenkins. You can find my links at loganjenkins.com. Again, 4 p.m. over there. Please come to our live show. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
If you were one of the people that asked a question, come over here. I'll give you something cool.